So, good afternoon. Second year Bcom Computer Applications, third semester Rdbms, and second year BA, third semester Rdbms. So, fourth unit. What is the fourth unit? Transactions and transaction control. Transactions and concurrency management. Transactions and concurrency management. So, what are transactions? So concurrent transactions, locking protocols, serializable schemes, locks, two-phase locking, deadlocks, and its prevention, optimistic concurrency control, database recovery and security. Database recovery meaning kinds of failures, failure control methods, database errors, backup and recovery techniques, security and integrity, data security authorization. So these are the topics of fourth unit. We begin with this concurrency controls and what are the different types of concurrencies, what are the different types of errors, what are the algorithms which are used to avoid concurrency, what are deadlocks. All these things we are going to discuss. So content is about concurrency problems in DBMS. Concurrency problems in DBMS and how to control concurrencies in DBMS or any RDBMS. So what are the different algorithms and types of problems which are exist. So concurrency problem. What is concurrency problem means? Data integrity and consistency problem may arise when several transactions are processed simultaneously. Multi-user database environment. So, data integrity and consistency problem may arise when several transactions are processed continuously. Example: Ali and Siti have a joint savings account in a bank, and each has been issued an ATM card. It may happen that both assign withdraw money at the same time in two different locations. So concurrency means, what is the meaning of concurrency? Means whenever we try to access the same database or same data or information from the database or tables by the two or more users at the same time. By the two or more users, some type of some confusion or some type of some delay will be occurred automatically when which transaction is completed first or which transaction is to be processed first. So that situation is called as concurrency. That situation in DBMS is called as concurrency. So concurrency condition in DBMS exists whenever we try to access the same records or same database by the number of users at the same time. So a simple example is the same account with the two different two operators or two users with same ATM cards, and whenever they try to access or withdraw money from the same with different ATMs, some situation may arise, some race will arise. That is called as, the situation is called as concurrency. So concurrency problems also. This is an example or explanation how to concurrency may exist in this situation. So some user is trying to account balance, and another user is trying to read the account balance, and some user is the first user is try to withdraw some amount, and at the same time second one tries and fails. So in this situation the concurrency may exist. So what is concurrency control? This type of problems are caused by lack of coordination of the two transactions. Maybe the DBMS does not provide concurrency control. Concurrency control refers to the coordination of execution of multiple transactions in a multi-user database environment. So whenever these two users are going to try the same database, to read the records or data from the data or information from the database. This type of situation areas, and it is called as concurrency controls, and DPMS doesn't know how to solve this concurrency control by software itself. So concurrency control refers to the coordination of execution. So concurrency control should be imposed or should be implemented whenever we try to use multiple transactions by the number of users at the same time. So concurrency control, three problems associated with concurrent processing. First one is lost updates, second one is uncommitted data, third one is inconsistent retrievals. So what are the concurrency control problems? First one is lost updates. Means whenever we try to access the same records by multiple users, one record is doing something and other record is other user does something, so updations are not properly completed, updations are not properly committed. So what are the transaction control statements? There are two types of transaction controls or control statements are available, as we know that. First one is commit and second one is rollback. Commit means to save the current work. Commit work means to save the current database or to save the database or to save the tables at that moment. Rollback means we simply moves back or moves to previous database position where the databases are where the database database is available. So that is called as rollback. Commit work means commit or saves the work. Rollback means rollbacks or go to the previous position of the work. And third one is timestamp. Timestamp means we directly moves to the particular moves the database situations into the particular time. So these are the three important transactions. So what are the main problems? First one is lost updates. Means whenever we do the same operations, whenever we work on the same records or database by the number of users, so their updates are not completed properly. That is called as lost updates. Second one is uncommitted data. Committed or uncommitted. Committed means saves your work, save your all the works. Uncommitted means the data will not be saved properly. Uncommitted means the data will not be saved properly. So means some portion is saved, other portion is not saved, like that. Third one is inconsistent retrieval. Inconsistent retrieval means the queries when you run the queries or when you try to retrieve records from the database or tables, the data or records or the data or tables or records are not in a position in a consistent mode, not in a consistent mode. Consistency means properly completed or properly so that whenever concurrency control arises, whenever we try to retrieve the data or records, these records are inconsistently retrievals, means they are not properly completed. So first one is last update. Last update means, what is the example? Assume that customer balance is 500 and two transactions T1 and T2 attempt to update the balance at the same time. So transaction T1 action and deposit 200. So computation means balance is equals to 500 plus 200 700. Transaction 2 is again action withdraw 100. So balance is 700 minus 100. It is 600. It is 600. So these two transactions are these are the two different transactions, But when you try these two transactions operate at the same time by different users on the same database table, so same database or same records, same database or table, so the information is not updated properly. So the serial execution of this transaction yields the correct result. Balance is equal to 600. Transaction requires several steps such as reading, modifying and writing. So what is a transaction? Transaction is nothing but in database or in any DBMS or any databases, a transaction is nothing but it is some type of operation or some type of commands or some type of queries like insertion, deletions, updations, retrievals, like that. So transactions require several steps such as reading, modifying and reading, modifying, writing, and it must be in correct sequence. And see the correct sequence for the previous transactions. So what is the sequence of these examples? So transaction 1, time 1, transaction 1 is T1, read balance 500. Transaction 2, balance is equal to 500 plus 200. Transaction 1, write balance is 700. Again transaction 2, read balance is 700. And transaction 2 is balance is equal to 700 minus 100. Transaction 2, write balance is 600. So what are the operations? Means first one is reading, modifying and sequencing. So this is the sequence. So how the transactions are executed means the first step is reading. Transactions are reading. Second one is modifying and third one is writing. So first one is reading a database records. Second one is modifying records or modifying database. Third one is writing. So this is the sequence. So that the balance is 700. It shows balance is 700. But what is the correct output of this transaction means? So what are the problems while consistency considered? Means first one is lost updates. Means concurrency control. When we try concurrency control problem exists, so there are three main problems are raised. First one is lost updates. So means updates are not properly completed. Second one is uncommitted data. Uncommitted data means what is committed data and uncommitted data? Uncommitted data means the work is not properly saved. The work you have done, the work or the transactions or the commands, the instructions you are given are not properly completed, are not properly saved, or improperly saved, means that transactions are incomplete. So the second one is uncommitted data. Data are not committed when two transactions T1 and T2 are executed concurrently, and T1 is rolled back after T2 has already assessed the uncommitted data. This violates the isolation property of the transaction. So what are the properties of what are the different properties of transactions? So properties of transactions are acid properties. They are called as acid properties. First one is ACID. A means atomicity, C means concurrency, third I means isolation, T means something. So when second one is uncommitted data, means data are not committed when two transactions T1 and T2 are executed concurrently, and T1 is rolled back after T2 has already assessed the uncommitted data. So what is rolled back? So what are the transaction control statements? Transaction control statements are, first one is commit, second one is rollback, third one is timestamp. Commit means, what is commit? Commit means to save the work, to save your work at that moment. Rollback means to move the database position to a previously saved position. Means third one is timestamp. Timestamp means to move your database settings or database transactions to a particular time saved. So this violates the isolation property of transaction. Next is uncommitted data continuation. So here it is the example. Transaction T1, action is deposit 200, computation balance is 500 plus 200, means rollback. T2 withdraw 100, so balance is 500 minus 100, balance is 2. Thus this serial execution yields the correct results balance 400. So uncommitted data means T1 transaction T1 read balance 500, T1 balance is equal to 500 plus 200, T1 write balance 700, T1 rollback 500, T2 read balance 500, T2 balance is equal to 500 minus 100, T3 write balance is 400. The scheduler below shows incorrect sequence leading to last updates. So third problem is inconsistent retrieval. Third problem is inconsistent retrieval means occurs when a transaction calculates an aggregate or summary function. Example is sum over a set of data which the other transactions are updating. Inconsistency happens because the transaction may read some data before they are changed and read other data after the change. Inconsistent retrieval means whenever a concurrency controls or concurrency situation arises and some group functions or aggregate functions works, means generally what are aggregate functions or group functions means sum, average, minimum, maximum, count. So whenever these calculations are used, means aggregate functions are used, and when these concurrency controls arises, it yields to the inconsistent retrieval or wrong results or wrong outputs. So next is concurrency control approaches. So how to approach or how to solve the problem of concurrencies, how to solve the problem of concurrency existence, or how to solve the concurrency control, how to control the concurrency, how to solve the concurrency problem is by using two methods. First one is locking, second one is timestamp. So what is locking? If locking means if two or more users are tried to read the same records or same database at the same time, we may can lock the other users and unlock only one user. That is the one solution. So locking means if one user is updating the data and all other users denied access to the same data. So if two or more users are trying to access the same data or information from the same records, we may simply allow one user to do updating or deletion something, and we may lock other transactions or other users. That is one solution. Second solution is timestamping. Timestamping is a unique global timestamp is assigned to each transaction. So this is the second. Timestamping means to record each and every transaction with a unique timestamp, or a unique timestamp means unique time retrieval. So these are the two solutions. So how to control concurrency means first one is locking by using locking technique or locking algorithms. Second one is timestamping by using timestamping technique. Also we may control the concurrency control in DBMS or in any DBMS or Rdbms. So locking is a mechanism to control concurrent access to a data item. Data items can be locked in two modes. First one is exclusive mode, data item can be both read as well as written. Xlock is requested using the lockx instruction. Shared mode means S mode. Data item can be only be read. Slock is required using lockS instruction. Lock requests are made to concurrency control manager. Transaction can proceed only after request is granted. So, how to use the locking and what are the locking done and how that locking is done in the transaction. So locking means S and X. X here X is some exclusive locking, and S means some shared mode. So a transaction may be granted a lock on an item if the requested lock is compatible with locks already held on the item. So any number of transactions can hold shared locks on an item, but if any transaction holds on an exclusive on the item, no other transaction may hold any lock on the item. If a lock cannot be granted, the requesting transaction is made to wait till all incompatible locks held by other transactions have been released. So, example of a transaction performing locking means transaction 2, lock SA, read A, unlock, lock, read, unlock, display. So, locking as above is not sufficient to guarantee serializability if A and B get updated in between the read and write here. So, deadlock. So, what is a deadlock and how to avoid deadlock situations in Rdbms? What are the different types of deadlocks and how to avoid what to do to avoid deadlock situations? So consider the partial schedule. So lock X B read B. So what is the definition of a deadlock? Deadlock means such a situation is called a deadlock. What is a deadlock? To handle a deadlock, one of T3 or T4 must be rolled back, and it's so whenever we try to simple, the definition of deadlock is simple. Whenever we try to read or update the same recorded transaction by multiple users, the situation erased is called as deadlock. So how to control deadlocks? What are the methods? So deadlock prevention. Transaction requesting a new lock is aborted if there is a possibility that it might cause a deadlock to occur. So how to avoid deadlocks means, what are the preventions means, transaction requesting a new lock is aborted if there is a possibility that it might cause a deadlock to occur. So methods to control deadlock means deadlock detection and deadlock recovery. Deadlock detection means Rdbms periodically checks the database for any deadlocks. If exists, it aborts one of the transactions. And deadlock recovery means it simply requires each transaction locks all its data items before it begins execution. So timestamping. So timestamping is another example or another situation. So what is a timestamping? Each transaction is issued a timestamp when it enters the system. Each transaction is issued a timestamp when it enters the system. If an old transaction TA has timestamp TS of TA, a new transaction TJ is assigned timestamp so that TS timestamp of TA is less than timestamp of TJ. A protocol manages concurrent execution such that the timestamps determine the serializability order. So this is the important concept of concurrency control. So what are the concepts here we covered? What are the important concepts here we covered here? Some first one is concurrency control, problems of erasing concurrency control, how to control concurrencies, and what are the different types of concurrencies with examples. So what are the Problems arise with concurrency controls. So how to solve concurrencies in Rdbms? First one is locking, second one is timestamp. Locking, locks or locking. What is a lock or locking? Different types of locks. Deadlocks. What are deadlocks? How to prevent deadlocks or how to handle deadlocks. What are the methods used to control deadlocks? Deadlock prevention and deadlock recovery, time stamping. So these are the important concepts from 4th unit. We will continue in the next class with a different slide. Thank you.